Sa'id bin al-Musayyab, a luminary among the 7 jurists of Medina, emerged as a beacon of knowledge during the era of the successors. His extraordinary skill in hadith authentication and fatwa issuance earned him the moniker Sa'id the Bold among his contemporaries. One of his colleagues, Sa'id, I once saw a man who was looking for answers go from one gathering to another until he ended up in Sa'id's circle. Such was the reluctance of people to issue fatwas and their recognition of Sa'id's courage in doing so. Sa'id's profound knowledge was evident from his own words. There is no one who knows more about all the rulings of the Messenger of Allah, Abu Bakr or Umar, than I do. This claim was no mere boast, as Umar bin Abdul Aziz attested, saying, there is no scholar in Medina who doesn't come to me with his knowledge, and I have been given what Sa'id bin al-Musayyab possesses. The depth of Sa'id's understanding was further illustrated by Imran bin Abdullah al-Khuzai, who remarked, by Allah, I never saw him when anything passed his ears, except that his heart would surely grasp and understand it. Sa'id's devotion to knowledge and worship was evident in his daily routine. A contemporary described, often he would sit in the mosque while fasting and talk to people. At sunset he would break his fast with a drink he brought from home. His nights were spent in devotion, as the same witness noted. On his riding animal he would constantly recite the Quran and increase in recitation. Sa'id's appearance reflected his commitment to cleanliness and modesty. A colleague described him, he never let his nails grow long, always kept his moustache very short, and shook hands with everyone he met. He was studious and meticulous, did not laugh much, and washed himself frequently. Wudu. His piety extended to his domestic life. He was known to say, I have never feared anything so much for myself as my fear of women. This statement was put to the test when he refused to marry his daughter to the son of the Caliph Abdul Malik bin Marwan, choosing instead a less prominent suitor. When asked about this decision, Sa'id simply said, I fled from their misfortune to the nobility of reason. Sa'id's independence of mind and unwavering commitment to his principles often brought him into conflict with the ruling Umayyads. When summoned by the Caliph Abdul Malik bin Marwan, Sa'id refused, telling the messenger, go and tell him that I am not one of his people. This disagreement reached a climax when Sa'id refused to swear allegiance to Abdul Malik's sons. Under pressure, he declared, I will not swear allegiance while Abdul Malik is alive. His reasoning was clear. I do not like the succession of caliphs by heredity without consultation. This stance led to his imprisonment and corporal punishment. But even in the face of such trials, Sa'id remained steadfast. When he was beaten and paraded around Medina, he maintained his position. In prison, he instructed his daughter to keep track of the food I usually eat at home and send me that amount, refusing to accept excesses that would deplete his resources and force him to rely on his oppressors. Throughout his ordeal, Sa'id's wisdom shone through. He would often say, the servants of Allah cannot make themselves high except by obedience to Allah, and cannot make themselves low except by disobedience to Allah Almighty. Sa'id's humility was evident in his self-reflection. There is no one who is noble, knowledgeable, or honorable, except that there is surely a fault in him, but there are people whose faults are almost unknown. If a man's good deeds are greater than his faults, he will give his faults to his good deeds. His approach to wealth was equally principled. He declared, O Allah, you know that I have never withheld this wealth out of avarice or greed, nor out of love for the world and the desire to obtain various worldly desires. I only want to protect my honor from the Banu Marwan with this wealth. Sa'id's teaching methods were distinctive. His disciple Bird, Mawla Sa'id bin al-Musayyab, described his prayer habits. As for his prayer in the mosque, I am sure we all know about it. As for his prayers at home, he used to say many prayers reciting Surah Shad. After Friday prayers, Sa'id would say several more rak'ahs before meeting his students, who would pepper him with questions. As Sa'id's life drew to a close, his principled nature remained unchanged. On his deathbed, when his companions turned his bed to face the Qibla, he remarked, if I did not face the Qibla and follow the religion, Islam, this change in the direction of my bed that you have made would be of no use to me. His final instructions reflected his lifelong modesty and focus on the hereafter. When I die, do not erect a tent over my grave, do not follow my funeral with fire, and do not announce my death to anyone. It is enough for me, those whom my Lord informs. Sa'id's teachings lived on. His student, Imam Malik, became a very important teacher in his own right. It was said that Sa'id knew more than anyone else in Medina. Even the rulers respected his knowledge. Sa'id showed that it's important to be brave, to keep learning, and to stand up for what's right. A book called Alam al-Muwaqqi'in says, Allah made Medina special with someone from the Quraysh tribe. The best teacher in Medina was Sa'id bin al-Musayyab, and no one was better than him. Today, many people still learn from Sa'id's story. It teaches us about the power of knowledge, courage, and a good life.